But I'm going to start with Donald Trump, because until this afternoon, he had been basically absent from the public eye since last Tuesday, which was his longest stretch away from cameras since becoming president. And that absence, and you may have seen this over the weekend if you looked at any social media platform, prompted quite a wave of online speculation about the president's health and well-being. So today, when he reemerged from his absence for an event in the Oval Office, even my buddy Peter Doocy from Fox News couldn't resist asking about it.
Something completely different, but about a big viral social media trend over the weekend. How did you find out over the weekend that you were dead? You see that?
No.
People didn't see you for a couple days. 1.3 million user engagements as of Saturday morning about your demise.
Really? I didn't see that.
Really? I didn't see that, he said. Now, as I mentioned, Trump's prolonged absence from the public eye sparked pretty widespread rumors. You probably saw them. But somehow, the guy who is famously online at very odd hours and totally obsessed with his own self-image says he didn't see any of it. Let's see what else he had to say about it today.
Really? I didn't see that. You know, I have heard, it's sort of crazy, but last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said, there must be something wrong with him. No, I heard that. I get reports.
Now, that isn't even an accurate summary of his own appearances in public, but that aside, 2 seconds into his answer, Trump says he had no idea there were rumors of his death. But 30 seconds later, in that same rambling answer, he says he did know about it. And then he wasn't even done. He kept going. He kept explaining.
No, I was very active over the weekend. They also knew I went out to visit some people at the club that I own pretty nearby on the Potomac River. And no, I've been very active, actually, over the weekend. I didn't hear that one. That's pretty serious stuff.
I didn't hear that one. That's pretty serious stuff. Now, just to be clear, we went in just a very quick span there. We went from Trump saying he hadn't heard about the rumors of his death to Trump saying he did hear about them from reports, to then back to Trump saying he hadn't heard anything about any of it in the span of approximately 60 seconds in the Oval Office today. You really can't make this stuff up sometimes. And look, we may never know why Donald Trump suddenly spent a week hiding entirely from the American public. But you don't actually need baseless online conspiracies to explain why he might not want to show his face in public right now. I mean, for starters, there's the polling, and boy, is it brutal. Americans are more and more pessimistic about their lives right now. A newly released Wall Street Journal poll finds that the percentage of Americans who think they have a good chance of improving their standard of living has fallen to just 25%, which is a new low in nearly 4 decades of polling that particular question. Then there's the reaction to Trump playing out in the streets out there. I mean, over the holiday weekend, we saw people protesting this administration all across the country. In Washington, D.C., people demonstrated against Trump's military takeover of the city. We saw big Labor Day protests in Boston and in Chicago and in Atlanta and in Seattle, calling on this administration to stop putting billionaires before workers. We saw similar protests in places like Hartford, Connecticut, and in Lexington, Kentucky, and in Hanahan, South Carolina, and in Madison, Wisconsin. In Broadview, Illinois, people showed up to demand the closure of a local ICE prison for immigrants. In Mountain View, California, we saw people line up along the road for a Labor Day protest that stretched 17 miles. Even in places like Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, in a county Trump won by more than 50 points, people showed up to protest this administration and what it is doing. So maybe that's part of why Donald Trump was so reluctant to show his face in public for a week. Or maybe it's because of his absolute failure to try and make people forget about his 15-year friendship with child sex predator Jeffrey Epstein. Lord knows that could be a reason. I mean, remember Trump and his little buddy Mike Johnson sent Congress home early this summer in hopes that everyone would just move on from what Trump refers to as the Epstein hoax. But nearly 6 weeks later, the pressure to release the Epstein files has not let up. And that is very clear from Congress returning to Washington. I mean, today, members of Congress are back. And one of their first orders of business was a closed-door meeting with a group of Epstein's victims and their family members. several of whom have been demanding relentlessly that the Trump administration release the full Epstein files. A number of those survivors will appear in a press conference tomorrow morning to share their stories publicly, which will be incredibly powerful. And a preview of what we might see, several of them sat down today with NBC News' Hallie Jackson to talk about their demand for answers.
They have emails, they have flight logs, they have a list they've compiled, right? And I feel like if they're not going to release this list to the public that everybody wants to see, we want to know who it is. A lot of us survivors know. We've been compiling lists of our own, and we have so many other survivors. Please come forward, and we'll compile our own list and seek justice for, on our own.
Now, at the same time, today, the bipartisan push to force the release of the Epstein files hit the ground running, with Republican Congressman Thomas Massie filing a discharge petition. I was just talking with Chris about this, which is basically a maneuver that would require the Speaker of the House to bring legislation forward for a vote. All it requires is 218 signatures. The Speaker of the House doesn't have to even approve of it. He doesn't have to be one of them. And Thomas Massie and his Democratic colleague, Ro Khanna, have already started gathering those votes as of tonight. They've made a little bit of progress on that, Democrats certainly, but even with Republicans. So maybe it's embarrassment about Epstein that has kept Trump away from the cameras. Or maybe it's because he's starting to realize that his campaign to intimidate blue state governors is not working. I mean, this week is supposed to be the start of Trump's latest deployment of federal agents to another American city, this time for deportation raids in Chicago. But after watching Trump attempt similar takeovers in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., Democratic elected officials are not exactly going along with his plan. That's putting it mildly. Here was Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker doing just that earlier today.
I know how Donald Trump thinks because I've been governor during both of his terms. He has surrounded himself with groveling yes men who are too weak to restrain his most violent and unhinged impulses, or who share those impulses. As a governor who cares about the well-being of my people, I can't live in a fantasy land where I pretend Trump is not tearing this country apart for personal greed and power. We are ready to fight troop deployments in court, and we will do everything possible to ensure that agents operating inside the confines of this state do so in a legal and ethical manner.
So maybe the biggest reason Trump has been so shy recently is that a lot of this pushback appears to be working.